The old Mercyville Hospital had always been a place of whispers and dark legends. It had stood for over a century, and its decaying walls held the memories of countless patients who had passed through its doors. But one story sent shivers down the spines of anyone who dared to speak its name: the legend of the ghostly nurse. It was a moonless night when Sarah, a nurse working the night shift, found herself alone on the dimly lit 5th floor of Mercyvale. The eerie silence was broken only by the occasional beep of a heart monitor and the distant hum of the ventilation system. Sarah had heard the stories but dismissed them as mere superstition. As she walked down the narrow corridor, checking on her patients, a cold draft sent a shiver down her spine. She turned to see a flickering light at the end of the hallway. It was an old-fashioned lantern held by a woman in a vintage nurse's uniform. Sarah's heart pounded as the apparition drew closer. The nurse's face was pale, and her eyes were empty voids. She reached out a ghostly hand, beckoning Sarah to follow. Unable to resist, Sarah followed the spectral nurse into an abandoned patient room. Inside, the room was frozen in time, covered in dust and cobwebs. The ghostly nurse pointed to an empty hospital bed, and Sarah noticed a single red rose lying on the pillow. The nurse's voice, cold and distant, whispered, "He's waiting for you." Terrified, Sarah fled the room and rushed back. She was met with puzzled looks from her colleagues. None of them had seen the ghostly nurse. Sarah gathered herself and thought maybe all was just a trick of her exhaustion. She tried to go back to work, but Sarah couldn't just shake the feeling of dread. She knew everything that happened was real. She knew she had to investigate further. As she delved into the hospital's history, she discovered the tragic fire that happened almost 52 years ago that killed 283 people. She went and continued with her quest to find the whole truth. She found the old newspaper that covered the fire with pictures and lists of the victims on them. She suddenly stopped, her eyes widening out of shock. Her heart began to beat louder and louder and louder as seconds passed her. She could not believe it. Tears began to fall through her cheeks as she felt a couple of hands held her shoulders. The head of the nurse popping up beside her, whispering,